into leadership. Katie Kay and Claire Shipman urge women to become confident as leaders. And other writers bemoan the limited numbers of women at the top of the organizational hierarchy. All true, but somewhat depressing. I prefer to look at the lives of women leaders and what works for them, what enables them to thrive as leaders in different organizational types. And those could be in business, they could be within the church, it could be nonprofits or even educational institutions. And we know that women have been building communities for a long time, sometimes doing the behind-the-scene, thankless tasks in order to leave a better legacy for their sons and daughters. And Margie Bailey is such a leader who has brought a strong legacy. She's built a strong legacy by being actively involved in this community for the past 4 decades. Margie is recognized as a leader by the community, as evidenced by the many accolades and honors that she has earned in recent years. And I first learned about her last year, September 2013, when she was the first woman to be awarded the Legacy Leadership Award by the Fargo, Moorhead, West Fargo Chamber of Commerce. And the award announcement on the Chamber's website indicates the confidence and appreciation the Chamber has for Margie's contributions when they said, "We have named Margie Bailey the 2013 recipient of the Legacy Leader Award. The Legacy Leader Award recognizes and emphasizes the important role and contributions of longtime local leaders in both shaping and serving the Chamber, the metropolitan community, and the region. A leader in the arts scene in the Fargo-Moorhead area, Bailey has worked to transform the downtown Fargo community, developing a rich arts culture, and has continued to be a constant champion for the area nonprofits. No stranger to community involvement, Bailey has worked and volunteered for years." I soon found out that this recent award is one of many that Margie has won and been recognized. She has the YWCA Woman of the Year Award for the Arts, Fargo Public Schools Partner in Education, the Downtown Business Association Friend of the Downtown Award, the Kiwanis Club of Fargo Outstanding President Award, the Greater North Dakota Association, North Dakota Chamber of Commerce Community Leadership Award, and I could go on and on. It is evident that Margie is a recognized leader. So I talked with Margie over a period of time and actually wrote a chapter about her in an upcoming book on women and leadership around the world. Yeah, this is part of the world, right? Doesn't only have to be CEO of Facebook or CEO of something else. Because I found Margie to be authentic, transformational, and a collaborative leader. So she inspires me to engage and be involved in this community. Margie and the recently retired Dr. Dick Bailey have been married for over 4 decades. They have raised 3 sons together and are enjoying being grandparents to 4 granddaughters. So join me in welcoming my good friend Margie Bailey to the stage.
Stumble on my way up here. That's pretty overwhelming, really. You know, but they did spell my name right, which is really, that's fairly unusual, so that's really kind of cool. I have to tell you a quick first, I want to thank, I have my partner in crime. Where is she with the clicker? Yeah, I am not great on PowerPoint. In fact, the last time I gave a presentation, I used Power Props, which really confused the Microsoft people. They thought it was the next step in PowerPoint. And actually, I just held up these poster things. It was really fun. But she spent a lot of time looking for the Power Prop thing. Anyway, I have to thank Lynette. She is my partner in crime in this, and she's going to hopefully keep me on track and not rambling too much. So I do want to tell you, I'm looking at the title of this, which is just so intimidating you can't imagine. Plus, it sounds really, really boring. So I'll try not to meet that expectation. But I recently spoke, or well, actually it was before I retired in 2011. I spoke at a small women's group at the community center in Arthur, North Dakota, and there was a whole busload of people they brought from the Good Samaritan home who were sitting there, and that is a tough audience, let me tell you, mostly women. It was a little frightening. And I went through all this stuff and how revitalizing downtowns, gives you that fingerprint of the downtown area and all of these things and how important they were and how it was a sense of place and a touchstone and all those kinds of things. And at the end of this darling lady with the little curlers in her hair said, "Well, that's just great for you, but, what difference does it make for us?" And I thought, wow. So I'm kind of feeling like that today when I look at this. So what, really, seriously? I've said so many times that my life, honestly, has all been about serendipity, synchronicity, and a tiny, tiny little bit of strategery, really. And so what I'm going to do today is I can't figure out any other way to explain this journey other than to just give you sort of a portal into Margaret McGordon Bailey. And I have one of my long-lost relatives sitting right down here, too, so that's even more intimidating. So yes, I'm not really originally a Bailey. That was one of the most really terrifying things of moving to Fargo, because everybody thought I should behave as a Bailey, and I was really a McGordon. So anyway, this is my story, and I'm sticking to it. I grew up in Mount Pleasant, Iowa, in a great big old house, and I had 4 sisters, so there were 5 girls, and 2 parents who were very engaged with all of us, but who were unique. They were kind of different, and I think my mother was hugely influential in my life. But Mother was different. She was a community organizer, for crying out loud, and this is in like the late 40s, early 50s. And so she was always driving around in the station wagon where everyone else was fixing dinner, and it was confusing for me, actually. But she did have a lot of really wonderful, wonderful sayings, and that were just kind of things that stick to me to this very day. And one of her favorites was "rise above it." So rise above it. So I thought, wow, she is so prophetic, because now we've got, the Frozen "get over it," or whatever it is they say in the Frozen thing. Or maybe that's what I say, "let it go, let it go." Okay, and then Taylor Swift says "shake it off." So here's my mother in the early 50s saying, "rise above it." So I thought that was really terrific. So she grounded me in a wonderful way and grounded all of us. And it's not easy to have 5 girls, believe me. Not that I've had experience of having 5 girls, we had 3 boys. But anyway, my father was kind of the antithesis of my mother. He was the artist in the family. He was the musician in the family. He was a huge collector of antiques. So, my basic love for history and for antiques definitely comes from my father. My father was a general practitioner in small town, Mount Pleasant, Iowa. So he was on call 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, and really, really, he was involved in the community as well. So value system that was passed on from him, significant value system that was passed on from him. We grew up in this house. Those are 4 of my sisters and a part of the menagerie, I believe, there. We have a dog, a cat, there's a hamster around there somewhere, and a bird in the background. But that was a small part of the menagerie that we had, because my father also collected animals. We, at any given time, had a goose, a skunk, a rabbit, a raccoon that he collected along the road coming back from Iowa City, I think. And then we had a huge turtle that they picked up just outside of Jefferson, Missouri. And they let the turtle in the house, and the turtle went into hibernation and just crawled under a couch. And my parents were having a dinner party, and the turtle crawled out, evidently done with the hibernation. So it was a fascinating household to grow up in. This is when we were a little bit older. I think in this picture we said, okay, that's it, no animals in this picture, so it's just us. During the time that I was growing up, music was a huge part of who I was, and a big-time activity for me. Part of that comes from my father. I used to sit on the couch with him on Saturday afternoons and listen to the Metropolitan Opera. I played in the band. We didn't have an orchestra in Mount Pleasant, Iowa, but I sang in the choir, and took piano lessons at Iowa Wesleyan College in the music department there. And actually, my mother they didn't have a preparatory department at that point in time, or a prep department, and so they started one because there were several people in my class in high school who were really good musicians, and so they started the prep department there. This is a town square in Mount Pleasant, Iowa, and this is actually a very recent photo. We were just down there in September, and Iowa is really good at historic preservation. They have great Main Street projects, and that happens to be that particular view. My father's original office was right in the area that is kind of, for you, it's down, and we used to watch parades going around the square looking out those two windows, but it's recently been preserved. It's about, wow, I think it was about a $25 million project, and they've done all of the buildings around that square. So again, for me, it's a sense of place, and I think that translated into my love for downtown. So, and I didn't really realize that until someone asked me. I think it was probably at the Arthur meeting when I was waxing eloquent about how it was so important to have this sense of place. And I'd grown up with this town square, and she decided that wasn't really that particularly interesting to her. And in fact, the last time we were in Mount Pleasant, there was this curmudgeon-y lady sitting out right on the corner there, and Judy was pointing out the fact that that was our father's, my sister, pointing out the fact that that was my father's old office, and it was right above the Bra Pharmacy, and the lady said, no, the pharmacy's over there, and she was really, I don't know whether she was that Madge person that's on all the cards, but she looked very much like that. So I think that the next slide is one of me in the junior high band, and I'm the little flute player on the edge there, whose feet don't touch the floor. I think that's the one. There I am. So again, it's a small town. You're in all kinds of groups. Growing up in Mount Pleasant, I happened to live next door to Helen Hallowell, or we lived next door to Helen Hallowell. She was not only our high school gym teacher, but she was also head of high school girls for the Interlochen National Music Camp. And so I became aware of that very early on in my life, and that was something that I always aspired to do. And so after my freshman year in high school and my sophomore year in high school, I went to Interlochen. There I am. Now, I don't know whether you guys know about Interlochen, but they have uniforms, and they include corduroy knickers, navy blue. You wear blue socks, except on Sunday you wear white socks, and then you wear a white or a blue shirt. And there I am in my uniform. And I was kind of my father referred to me as a clothes horse, but actually I was a fashionista. So this was a little disturbing to me to wear the same thing every single solitary day, believe me. And we all look the same. So, but I understand the motive. It was to make us focus on something else, which is excellent. That guy is Henry Harris, and Dr. Henry Harris, and he was a professor at the University of Michigan. And he was as intimidating as he looks there. He was my piano professor, and I really loved and hated him simultaneously. He was really, really tough. He was absolutely as intense as you can see him looking. He used to steal napkins from the cafeteria, and he would set them on the table just as you were going out of his studio, because everybody who went out was crying. I mean, it was seriously, man or woman, boy or girl. And so I learned from Henry, I learned self-restraint and how to avoid showing emotion, and then a lot of really good practice techniques too, because he was really very rigorous and very rigid about that. But it was a wonderful experience to study with him. This is Van Cliburn, and Van Cliburn had just adopted, he was like 20 when he visited Interlochen that first year, and this was the first year that he sort of adopted Interlochen as his summer place. And that sounds like a song, but anyway, he was there in the summertime. And he gave a concert that was absolutely extraordinary, and he visited our studios, the piano studios, and so I got a chance to actually meet him, and I have a letter from him, and it's just, he was extraordinary and very tall, really tall, and the most magnificent hands, and really an extraordinary musician. After high school, I spent 1 year, I'm still on the track for Carnegie Hall. I know what my outfit is going to be, my first concert, all those kind of things. So I went to Lawrence University, to the music conservatory there. And again, you know, I just had not quite accepted the fact that I was a little too gregarious to spend all the time in the practice room. And so the first year at Lawrence was not my happiest year. I transferred to Grinnell, and Grinnell was kind of our family school. My mother had attended Grinnell, and my uncles and my sister was at Grinnell. And I'm showing you this picture because over on the edge, it would be to your right, is Evelyn Gardner, who was the Dean of Women when my mother was at Grinnell. And she used to load us all in the station wagon in Mount Pleasant and drive to Grinnell, Iowa, and to the college to visit Evelyn Gardner because she had been that much of an influence on her life. And she wasn't married and she had no children, and so she sort of adopted us and watched us grow. And coming to Grinnell felt like coming home. It was a touchstone for me. It finally felt right. It felt, I had always spent all this time thinking literally that I was going to be this concert pianist, and that was my destiny. And I found out that wasn't my destiny after all. So I loved Grinnell. I sang in the choir. We had Don Jones was our conductor. He was fabulous, lots of Renaissance music. It was really, really, the soprano to the right is a much better singer than I am, believe me, in that one, or the left. This guy, that cute, sort of nerdy looking guy, was a tenor in the choir. And that's a picture of us in the brand new, then brand new music building at Grinnell. Of course, I met Dick at Grinnell, and there we are walking down the loggia at Grinnell College. Grinnell was a wonderful place for me. Again, it felt comfortable. It felt like home, very challenging. The lesson learned there were a lot of smart people, and you wanted them in your study groups. That absolutely, positively. And I learned that very quickly. I graduated like maybe in the middle of my class, but I haven't looked at that record recently. I graduated from Grinnell in 1967. Dick had graduated the year before that. We were married in Mount Pleasant, Iowa, again. And the lesson learned here is if your mother wants to plan your wedding, let her. And my mother was the organizer's supremo, and she planned this whole wedding. I just showed up. I wore my sister's gown, her wedding dress. It was very little work. In those days, you just had the church basement reception, and then Dick and I went on our way to the Black Hills for our honeymoon. And we did hear they had a pretty big party at this house we had in the country, so I don't know. Those are just rumors, I think. I had about a week respite, and that was the honeymoon. And then, wow, then I had to enter the real world. Dick was in medical school in Minneapolis, and you see that skyline there because that's where I had to try to find a job. It was the get a job kind of thing. And so, of course, as a liberal arts music major, I decided to go into technology. IBM, yep, IBM, there it is. That's one of the big computer rooms, believe me. That's like a 360 or a 350. I can't remember what in the hell they used to call those things. But they were huge. They were absolutely enormous, and my job was to take trouble calls and then call the customer engineer who was assigned to that particular system. And A, I knew nothing about this. B, I was assigned to a territory in Minneapolis, and I've only been a resident there for like 2 weeks, so that was a little, and I'm geographically challenged, so that was a little bit difficult. And C, these guys were such whiners, really whiners. It's their system. They are responsible for it. They are the ones that are supposed to take care of this. So why should I have to beg them to take care of the system? So I did that for about a year. I got there on a Friday morning. I just thought, this just doesn't fit for me. It does not fit. So I went in and I talked to my supervisor. Amazingly enough, he seemed to think that this was probably the logical thing, that I was going to sort of leave and let somebody else take over my wonderful customer engineers. So I got on the bus, went back home, waited for Dick to get home. We didn't have cell phones in those days, obviously. We had huge computers, so how could you have a cell phone? So I waited for Dick to get home with a lot of trepidation because we weren't exactly rolling in dough, to say the least. We were living in this basement apartment in Minneapolis. So he got home and he said, "Well, I understand. It isn't a good fit. So you have 2 weeks to get a job." So okay, all right. So this time I took the bus, and I thought Park Avenue was a good place to get off. You know, I'm kind of an uptown girl. I like Park Avenue sounded good. Actually, I was going for an interview at Lutheran Social Service of Minnesota, and I did get a job there. And it wasn't, I did kind of lie about my typing skills. It was in the foster care department, just a little bit. But the most important thing was they needed a piano player for the chapel services on Monday morning. Every Monday morning they had chapel services for the entire group. And I played the piano, so I was in like Flynn. It was so great. And I loved that job, absolutely loved it. We connected foster care parents with newborn babies, and they were kept in the foster care. These were really wonderful foster parents because they could only keep these babies just for a little while because it was kind of, they did the turnaround fairly quickly. And I got to know the foster parents. I got to do some of the hospital placements. It was really wonderful, and I started realizing that this was the world. This was kind of more my world. This focus on children and families and supporting the parenting process was really where I wanted to be, and it felt so right. And thank God at Grinnell I did take a few courses that stood me in good stead for that. So the next few years, we had our first child, Matt, who's the older one there, and then Eric. I call the next years kind of our vagabond years. Dick did an internship in Dallas, and so we moved to Dallas for a year. We came back to Rochester for a year. Then we went to North Carolina for 2 years. Then we came back to Rochester for 2 or 3 years. So the lessons that I learned along about that were, number one, don't collect a lot of stuff. Absolutely, do not collect a lot of stuff. And then secondarily, I also learned that when you're traveling with small children, you should stop every so often. But we were hell-bent on getting to North Carolina because we knew if we had to get there in order to get base housing. And, you know, in fact, we were the last physician to get base housing, and so it was worth really rushing. But we hit one place in North Carolina, and we were almost there, and it was a little small gas station, and there was this curmudgeon-y old guy sitting outside, and our son Matthew crawled up on his lap and would not get back in the car. He found a home, he was gonna stay there. And we literally had to drag him away from this guy. So that was a lesson well learned there. We came back to Fargo, not back to Fargo, I came to Fargo for the first time. Now, I have to tell you, it was flat, really, really flat, much flatter than Iowa. And I was a McGordon, not really a Bailey, you know, and it was, I don't know, it was odd. It was a transition. It was really a transition. I did get involved enormously involved in volunteerism, and the Junior League was a wonderful support system for me and also training ground. I had wonderful training in League. I did a workshop called Managing Organizational Change, which I thought sounded wonderful, and it was. It was in Philadelphia, and it was absolutely sensational. So volunteerism was a big deal. I got very involved in my children's schools as well, so in the PTA. And I think that the next slide is going to be one. This was what I call these were in the days when I got really passionate about things, and so I sort of steamrolled ahead. You know, I didn't have as much of a filter on it. That was another thing my mother always said was, you know, put a filter on it, Margie. So this was one of my filterless times, and I went to a fifth grade award ceremony, and I was stunned. It was a fifth grade award ceremony. So now one would expect that you would have awards for academic achievement, awards for musical achievement, artistic achievement, all those kinds of things, but no. It was all awards from the track and field day that was held the day before. And I thought that was just wrong, really wrong. So I wrote this impassioned letter to Donovan Nelson, poor Donovan, and he was the principal, and to everybody in the school system, all the teachers in the school system, of course, and to the forum as well, of course. Yeah. So that was my first published letter to the forum. That was really great. And Donovan called me, of course, Donovan being Donovan, and he said, okay, I get your point. I get your point. You certainly made it often enough, and in enough places. So I get it. So now you come up with something that is an award process for something other than a track and field day, because everybody is really involved in things. They don't really necessarily have time. So if you want to work through the PTA or whatever. Well, I thought I would just steamroll ahead on my own, and I came up with this elementary art night concept. And the concept was it would be analogous to a track meet where parents could sort of stop by and share this art with their son or daughter between 4 and 8 on the third Thursday in April. For some reason, I thought that was the magical time, third Thursday in April. And it was just a way that they could also then get a participation ribbon. And so I figured all these things out. What I neglected to do in the elementary art night thing was develop a team. You need partners in this kind of thing. And for 30 years, I called the elementary school, because then we expanded it to all the elementary schools in Fargo, to 12 elementary schools. And I would call and get the number of kids in the school system, and then I would order the ribbons, and I would get the ribbons funded, and then I would deliver the ribbons. I had not developed my elementary art night team, and so I did that for like 30 years until Nancy Jortheim finally took pity on me, and the school system took it over. So, but it's a project that I was proud of. And I learned a lot from that. But probably the primary reason was you can accomplish things if you really get aggressive enough about it. And but you need a team, and you need to be able to pass it on and not continue to do it every single solitary year. So that was elementary art night. That's the picture of the. This almost makes me cry when I see that. I hate seeing our old church. I love seeing it, but that's Gethsemane Cathedral near downtown Fargo. I was very involved in Gethsemane. You know, again, that was kind of like moving to Fargo. It was very flat. I thought the Episcopal Church was too much pomp for the circumstance. Seriously. I mean, how many times can you kneel and stand up and look in your prayer book and kneel and stand? So the Methodist in me really didn't acclimate too well. Slowly but surely, I did begin to acclimate, and now it's something that's very near and dear to my heart. But I directed the children's choir from 1980 to 1987. I loved that, absolutely loved that. In fact, I have to tell you one rehearsal that I was having down in the church basement, and one of my little choir members was totally engaged. It was Angie, I think, or maybe it was Aaron, probably Diane's Aaron. Totally engaged, and I thought, wow, I'm really reaching. This is so cool. She's getting this. And we had rehearsal every single Wednesday night and sang every Sunday morning. And so afterwards, I said, Aaron or Angie, whoever it was, so you were so right on. You were just really with me tonight. And she said, yeah, the music was okay, but how do you get that blue stuff like under your eye, you know? So it was about, you know, makeup. It wasn't about the music too much. So that's another lesson learned. Wow. So here's our wonderful, beautiful church. Obviously, it burned to the ground on September 12th, 1989. I'll never forget that. And many of you who were around, it was a pretty momentous time for all of us. The big lesson, the takeaway from that for me was, I thought it was the end of our congregation, that we would never reconstitute and regroup. And boy, the lesson learned there is, it really is. It is the people. You know, the little thing you did is the church and the steeple and the people. It really is the people. And so the people got their act together, and we had a wonderful architect, Charles Moore from Dallas, and he worked with us, and we brought sort of this prairie Gothic thing that was reminiscent of the old Gethsemane, and had, you know, the contemporary kind of prairie look to it. And it's a lovely, beautiful church on South 25th Street. So that was our creation, and it really was. It was a congregational project, and we were better off having done that. So I'm a committed Episcopalian at this point in time. So, I think about that time, Dick and I were sitting at the dinner table, and this was in the summer of 1986, and Dick said, you know, I'm looking at our financial projections, and one of the commitments we'd always made was that we wanted to send our kids to their first 4 years of college and without any debt, be able to pay for it. And we had thought we'd taken care of that, but Dick said, I don't think we have. So I think it would be a great idea for you to get a job. And I thought, get a job? I've got all this volunteer stuff I'm supposed to be doing. I've got the Grace Choir. Good grief. Plus, what am I going to, you know, what am I selling here? What's my skill base? And then I remember that in junior league, we had the volunteer skill portfolio, and that's where you translate all the things you do as a volunteer or as a homemaker or whatever. It's, you know, it's not really mothering the family, it's managing the family. And it's doing all the financial things that you do when you're raising a family. And so you just translate all of those things that you've been doing into some kind of a management skill. So that's what I did, and I managed to fool the United Way into hiring me to be the coordinator for the Holiday Clearing Bureau. And again, I just went for social services. I love that project. The thing I love the most about the Holiday Clearing Bureau, which is a Christmas giving program, was that you didn't have to come in and fill out a bunch of forms. You really did not. If you said that this is something that you needed, then they believed you, and you signed up the ages of your kids, and what they would like to have, and what their sizes were, ages and sizes. It was a wonderful experience for me. The reason the Santa Bear is there is because I call this the Santa Bear factor. And this is sort of a philosophy that I use a lot, and I have used a lot. I called Jim. I was shopping at Dayton's. I never separate, you know, my professional life from my volunteer life from my family life. It's all just kind of a mishmash integrated together. So I was shopping, and I was thinking about my Holiday Clearing Bureau thing. And the Santa Bears had just come out. It was their very first year. So I called my friend Jim Eddy, who was managing Dayton's at that point in time. I said, Jim, I'm doing this great project, and I've got 2,400 kids who a Santa Bear would be fabulous for them to have. And he said, are you kidding me? I have to give them to all of my employees. I'd have to give them to the friends of my employees. I'm not giving you Santa Bears. I'll give you a $25 gift certificate or something like that. And I said, well, Jim, just think about it. Think about how much fun that would be to be able to deliver those when we deliver the other toys. And so he called 3 days later and said that there was a semi-truck full of Santa Bears on their way to Fargo. Now, this is great, but the only problem was, this is where, you know, you have to really be flexible. This is a life lesson. Said it's on its way, and it's like in Dilworth. So I had, like a semi-full truck full of Santa Bears that needed to be unloaded somewhere. And I had to figure out how to get the people to unload them and the place to have them unloaded too. So the Armory, fortunately, was available, which is where we were going to have one of the big, have parents pick up the gifts. So so that kind of worked. So we could unload them there, but then I didn't have anybody to do that. So the United Way people said, well, you can get somebody from the New Life Center to volunteer. So that day I was driving Dick's little red convertible, so I drove over to the New Life Center and picked up 3 great big guys that I'm driving down in this little red convertible. Of course, the top was up because it was wintertime. But anyway, I all of a sudden thought, wow, you know, I've got 3 big dudes who I have no idea who they are, where they've been, or where they're going, and I'm just driving here like this is a perfectly safe thing to do. And it worked out fine, so. And they did a really great job. So that was, I loved that job. It was really fun, but unfortunately it was very short-lived because it's only a 6-month program. So we were back at the dining room table again thinking, okay, now what can I do? And I happened to have been on the board of directors for the Center for Parents and Children. And at that time, we were looking at going under the umbrella of another organization. We were going to either go with Merit Care or with the Village Family Service Center. And we moved to transitioning to going under the supervision of the Village Family Service Center and keeping our own identity in our own offices. And the development director didn't really like that, so she resigned. And so I thought, wow, I can do that. And so I signed on as the development director for the Center for Parents and Children, and again, a job that I absolutely positively loved. And the thing you see on the screen now is my first branding exercise, and it's probably the one I'm the most proud of. It's the uphill struggle against child abuse and neglect. And it was, the experience there was, the most fun about that job was that Gary Walski let me do just about whatever I wanted to do as long as I brought in enough money. And so I was able to do a lot of prevention, fund a lot of prevention programming. And then he asked me to do a fundraiser. And so I thought, oh, geez, here's another dinner, another, wine, and I have to get a bunch of stuff that people are going to buy that they really don't want and all that kind of thing. So I thought, no, I'll do something that's cause related, that's something that connects to what our mission is. And so we had a one-day toy fair. And I asked elementary kids to bring in toys, either new or good condition used toys, to bring them in to their school systems. And at that time, the teachers could talk about things that could be going on in their family system, at a developmentally appropriate age, developmentally appropriate for their age. If there were things that were going on in their family systems or in their environments that were troubling to them. So it sort of introduced them to the fact that the school was there to support them. And then in addition to that, had them give something of value to them to an organization that dealt with children and families. So it sort of engendered some philanthropy as well as being a great fun day. And we ended up with so many toys. We filled the Hawthorne gym. That's my little crew. Deb DeWitz is there, and Bill Metcalf, and just great, great people to work with. And the first year we did it in 1987 in the Hawthorne gym. Great success. We had just lines of people out the door. We made a ton of money, at least for the time. I thought it was a ton of money. And it was really, really fun. The next year we did it, not so much. So here's another lesson learned, and that is don't get complacent. Don't just, and this was one of my mother's favorites, don't rest on your laurels. You have to keep enhancing things. You have to keep making it fresh. You can't just think that because all the television stations showed up last year that they're going to be right there for you this year. So you have to continue to make things fresh and new and better. And so it was an abject failure in 1988. I had more toys than you can possibly imagine that I had to drag back to the village. And then I gave them to the Holiday Clearing Bureau, so fortunately I had that connection already set, so that was good. But the third year then, we set it up. I thought, we're going to do this one more year. And I talked to Gary Walski into letting me do it. And so we ran it exactly the same way, except we did it at the Centennial Gym, which was brand new, and then they had a lot of auxiliary rooms. So I thought, well, I'll set up hands-on kinds of workshops, and we'll do some musical workshops, and we'll do all kinds of things that will be a value-added sort of thing. And then I went to the library and went through all the standards and poors. If you go there, well, you don't have to now, you can look it up online, but you can find the names of CEOs of major corporations, and where they graduated from. So I was looking for, like a Grinnell grad or something like that, trying to figure out some kind of a connection. But what I really found were the names and addresses of CEOs. So I wrote to them in toy manufacturer places and asked for gifts of toys for this project. And the one that I really wanted was the Lego Corporation in Connecticut. And they initially said we only give to hospitals in Connecticut, and we really can't give beyond that. And so I thought, well, okay. We did get some other good donations from toy manufacturers, but about 6 weeks before the toy fair, our Steve, our maintenance guy at the village, came in just trying to carry this huge box. He said, this isn't heavy, but it's really noisy, and it's very cumbersome. And he plops it down in my office, and it was chock full of Lego. It was just like loose Lego. It wasn't in the little boxes, so I thought, oh my God, what am I going to do with this? It's like just loose Lego. And it was a wonderful gift, but it wasn't together, and there were no instructions or anything, and it didn't have the pretty pictures on it. So the lesson learned there is you can ask and ask and ask, but it doesn't always come back to you exactly, as you assumed it would come back. So then I thought, okay, now I can do this. I can be creative about this. And so I thought, I'll get architects. They'll want to make things out of this. And so, well, that didn't work so well until one architect fell for it. I think it was Joel Davey, maybe. Yeah. And then the rest of them all got on board because he made his little thing, and then we had that on display at the Village. And then the rest of them started getting really competitive. You know, Royce Yater wanted in on this action too, and then so slowly but surely, then I had to keep the architects away from the Lego so that I'd have enough left for hands-on kinds of things. So that was another sort of interesting project that was lesson learned. I went on to be the development director at the Village Family Service Center, and I loved that. It was, again, very much like the Center for Parents and Children, only a little bit larger job, and it was really, really fun. I resigned from that position in 1992 and had a midlife crisis. I thought, you know, I need another degree. I need something besides a piano playing degree kind of thing. That's just, if Dick dumps me, or if we move to Phoenix, nobody's gonna know who the heck I am. So I went back to MSUM in their Public and Human Service Administration master's degree. And I was accepted conditionally because I had not had any statistics or any accounting. And I had to do that as an undergrad, and that was horrifying, really horrifying. I sat in my first accounting exam, I sat between two huge football players who just went like this on their little calculators and checked out. They were done with the exam. And I'm sitting there, I was there like 40 minutes after the last person left trying to do this exam. So I was not a good accounting student, and my name was Bailey, so it was not good. I wasn't very good at statistics either, but I kind of learned how to survive at that point in time. So I made it through that master's program. My goal was to get the degree before I was 50, and I barely made it, like by 3 days or something like that. During that time, actually my graduate thesis was on the Parenting Paths Project, which was a project of the Kiwanis organization, Young Children Priority 1, and it was a project that we developed. Kiwanis International asked us as Kiwanis organizations to develop programs that would impact young children 0 to 5 in our communities. So we designed a program, and this time I got lots of partners involved in this one because you needed a lot of partners. All of the hospital systems provided inventories for parents of newborns to assess the kind of environment that they were taking their babies home to. And it was, they were scored at NDSU, so it was not connected to your hospital record. It was kept totally confidential, so you could just share it with your parenting partner. And then it listed all the programs and services that were available in the community if you chose to reach out to some of those based on the scores that you'd gotten on this inventory. So it was a comprehensive program. It also connected us to NDSU and to the graduate students there, so it was really fun. The problem with programs like that, obviously, is that you make those connections, like the NDSU connection, and then you lose your main professor who's overseeing the students who are doing that, and things tend to fall apart. So we managed to keep that going for, I think, about 8 years, and then it just kind of, well, one of the big problems was that parents were no longer going to prenatal courses. So that was kind of an interesting phenomenon. That's another phenomenon that I'm still interested in investigating, because I think parenting is the toughest thing you could possibly do, and you need a little prenatal course for that. So anyway, that'll be in my next life. But that served me well for a thesis, and then also just for the Parenting Paths Project. During that time, too, I was also sucked into, yes, the fabulous Fargo Theater. There I am with Oli. I took over as development director in 1996, and in 1997, if some of you may remember, there was a phenomenon called the movie Fargo that came out. And Jim Shaw interviewed me and said, okay, Margie, the movie has been nominated for 7 Academy Awards, so what are you going to do? This was like 3 weeks before the Academy Awards, and I said, well, we're going to have one huge party. And we are going to invite everybody that was in that cast, and we're going to serve lutefisk and lefse and lime jello. And I made all of this stuff totally up, just totally up, having not a clue what I was going to do. And the AP picked up this story, so it went, like viral. Well, it was viral for those days. And I started getting calls from all these morning talk radio shows, like in Denver and places like that. So I had to fulfill the expectation. And that, again, that's a lesson learned too. So yeah, putting a filter on it there could have stood me in really good stead. But it turned into a wonderful community celebration. It was really, really, absolutely, it was so much fun. And that picture appeared on the cover of Philanthropy Today, or whatever, what is it, Philanthropy Today? Very serious publication, but they were talking about humor and fundraising. And so humor stood me in good stead, really good stead throughout this whole project. We were getting into the renovation part of it at that point in time. We started out with a campaign called We've Only Scratched the Surface, because we had redone the lobby, but not the rest of the theater. And so we had about a $3 million project ahead of us. This, again, was treading on turf. Now it looks really glamorous, but if you could see what was going on around me, the guys were working on the cat stuff up here. They were doing all the catwalks up here. They were hanging, rigging, doing all kinds of things, and they were talking to me in not too complimentary terms the entire time we were doing this photo shoot. So I have a smile on my face, but believe me, it was really tough. We were right in the middle of the construction project. This was, again, something, risk-taking is important. It really is. Sometimes you just have to embrace it, even though you know nothing about construction, absolutely nothing, but you feel strongly about it. I felt strongly about the Fargo Theater. I knew that this would be a catalyst for downtown. I knew that in my heart. I knew if we could do it in the square in Mount Pleasant, Iowa, we could certainly do it in Fargo, North Dakota, because this was my town and I'd come to love it. And this is an example of some of the challenges we had. We had to pull the marquee off the front of the theater without, of course, pulling the whole facade down. That would have been a real bummer. We loaded it on a flatbed truck, took it to Cook Sign. They literally drew around it so they could get the dimensions right, and then replicated the sign. But that was a really scary, that marquee was in scary shape. It is amazing it didn't fall off the side of the building and kill someone, or lots of people. This is the inside of the theater when we were doing the renovation part of it. That was scary, too. Again, this is the lesson learned here is just get a lot of good people and a great construction manager. He's right there, Steve Allman. He was absolutely fabulous. But I would walk into the theater, and there would be huge holes in the wall, and the sun would be shining through, and it was horrifying. And every week I had to meet with Barry Fife from U.S. Bank. Is anybody here from U.S. Bank? This guy, he was scary. Oh, Greg, he was scary. He insisted that I have cash and pledges in hand for every bill that I paid. Now, I think that's sort of unreasonable. Can't you just go on faith? Good grief. Oh, God. He was very exacting. So to circumvent Barry, I did a couple of side deals. That were off the books that were being reported to U.S. Bank. So it's all good now, though. It's all good. It was challenging, but it all came back together, and we had the grand reopening in March of 1999, and it was wonderful, and it felt great. And we went on to do the film festival, which was something that was near and dear to Ted Larson's heart and to Rusty Castleton's heart, and I see Cindy here. And it was an absolutely fabulous project. Again, when I took on this job, I knew nothing about movies, nothing, other than having gone to a couple. So the learning curve was huge. And then all of a sudden I got sucked into these small independent films where you can walk in to a theater, you sit down, and your world has changed. I mean, in 90 minutes it's changed, or even in 30 minutes. We had a film in the film festival just a couple of years ago called Butterfly Circus that was so extraordinary and so beautiful. And it literally changes your life. And you can have documentaries that will take you to places you've never been and never will go, and yet you know these people, and you are transformed, and you were transplanted there. And that's what film festivals do. So next March, don't miss it, because it'll be back again, and it's going to be bigger and better than ever. And it's probably one of the most powerful, transforming things that I've ever been involved in. Of course, I still have to bring a little bit of laughter into it. And this is my wonderful friend, Dick Solberg, who I would always talk into being on the back cover in some kind of a Strange and Wondrous outfit. And this is the one, this was the 2006 when we showed the movie Fargo on the side of the Radisson. And so Dick says, you know, they should have put their money in State Bank and not a snowbank. And I said, yeah, Dick, boy, that really froze their assets. And he said, and we were doing this live too, so for a thing on the screen. And he said, you can't say that. And you know, Dick, he's so straight. He said, I said, isn't that a financial term, like frozen assets? Yeah, okay. So anyway, we said it anyway. Now this is Dick at his very best. He got so into this, and we borrowed the pants he had on from Rick Stern, and I swear Rick had they were so smelly, and oh my gosh, it was unbelievable. But we had a great time doing that. Again, I think you know, humor, and everybody loves to dress up, and and Dick is no exception. He was absolutely amazing and wonderful, and it was just a pleasure, an absolute pleasure to have them as a major sponsor. During that time, too, we were doing, this is another Kiwanis project that I absolutely loved, and I wanted to just bring this up just as we're coming kind of to a close here. This was the Kiwanis project, Welcome to a World Full of Beautiful Music, and I have to tell you that this was based on Donald Campbell's theory that Mozart makes you smarter, and but it was making him richer. And so I thought, rather than order all of his recordings to give, you know, his CDs to give away, we should do our own here. And so I pitched this to Linda Boyd, and her recording company did it, and it was primarily Concordia musicians who recorded late Renaissance, early Baroque music, because it's very organized and it's wonderful to listen to, and it's something that I'm very proud of, and I'm very proud of the capacity of the musicians in this community. But Jay Hirschberger did the Mozart variations on Twinkle Twinkle Little Star on this. Peter Halverson did, at the end of it, sings Brahms' Lullaby, and with a marimba accompaniment, and it's absolutely fabulous. I still have copies available in case you guys want some. So that was a wonderful project. Again, I have never separated what I'm doing professionally from my volunteer life. It's all just kind of integrated, and I think if you keep those silos, it's not as rich and full and fun, at least for me. This is the final thing that I wanted to do at the Fargo Theater before I rode off into the sunset, and that was our second screen, because we really needed to move film product somewhere, so that, because distributors were beginning to look at us very closely. Once they could check out our website and see whether or not we were actually screening the movie that we would promise to screen. Before that, we would just sort of fabricate or split box offices or whatever to bring live events in, because that's the way we could cash flow, is to have live events that mixed up with our film programming. But distributors wanted their film shown 3 times, you know, every single solitary day, and you didn't fool around with it. When I had Iron Man 2, we finally had gotten permission to do that. And I opened it a big, to a lot of hoopla, because we'd kind of stolen it from the multiplexes, sort of. And, but we had Paula Poundstone coming into the theater. And by then we had our second screen, but I was going to move the film over into that second screen, 76 seats, just for one screening. And I got a call from the little distributor driving around in his BMW in Los Angeles somewhere, who said, Margie, if that's not off the website, if Paula Poundstone isn't off the website and our film right back on, somebody will pick up that film within an hour. So I had an hour to get Paula canceled, and she was able to rebook. We were able to rebook her, and she hadn't left, hadn't gotten on her plane yet. And so that they were very, you know, vicious comes to mind, but maybe that's a little bit too strong. So it was challenging, but the second screen really did allow us, in most cases, to successfully move film product over there. Plus, it's a great place to watch a movie. Small, intimate theater, it's really great. So I was getting ready for that Ride in the Sunset thing, and 2010, we were doing so well, and then all of a sudden, I looked at the financials. I think Greg was around on our board then, and we were facing a $30,000 deficit. And I thought, oh my God, talk about getting complacent. How did this happen? And it happens really quickly in a place like ours that operates on this small margin. And then all of a sudden, for 3 weeks in a row, you don't get the box office that you think you're going to get. Whoa, it was really scary. And I left the office late one evening. I was driving down Broadway, and I looked at that beautiful marquee, and I thought, oh my God, what if we have to turn the lights out? And I thought, yeah, turn the lights out. This could be risky, but we could threaten to turn the lights out on the Fargo Theater marquee if we don't make X amount of money by, so that's how this brilliant idea came to me. And I'm not so sure it was brilliant. I could have been run out of town on a Lego train or something. I don't know. Anyway, by the end of, so we announced that campaign at the end of October, and we said that if we didn't receive $31,000 by December 31 of 2010, that we were going to turn the lights out of the marquee. So we did get $50,000, which was really terrific. However, we also got a huge snowstorm. So I think it was kind of just retribution. God was giving me retribution for having been a little bit controlling there and sneaky and all those kinds of things. So we weren't able to have the big celebration, and so that was kind of a bummer. But anyway, we did make the money, and all was well. And in 2011, I announced my retirement, and it was a great ride. It really was. I absolutely loved that job. And again, you know, do what you're really passionate about. It makes a big difference. That's just a picture of one of the wonderful retirement gifts that I was given when I left the Fargo Theater. Actually, they haven't changed the locks or anything yet, so I still hang around there a little bit. You know, what does this all mean? What does this all mean to you? So I feel like I'm back in Arthur here. For me, the things that have carried me through this whole kind of strange and wondrous career, and it really is serendipitous, are passion about what I'm doing, partnerships. None of this happens because of Margie Bailey. This has happened because of a community that is rich with capacity, and some capital as well. So we've tried to tap into that as well. But you need partnerships, absolutely, positively. Spirituality is really important to me, and please God, let's just make this day good kind of thing. And then also the more formal religious sort of thing too is important too. The Episcopal, you know, standing up and sitting down and opening your prayer book, all that kind of thing. And then finally, and most importantly, playing. And playing for me is the piano, and I have my violin partner sitting right here, and Margie Schlossman and I have been playing violin and piano. We are hot on the nursing home circuit, by the way. I want you to know. Yep, exactly. Yeah, we've been playing together since 1996. And, you know, one year, and we do play at the Plains Museum in December, and one year somebody called and said, so Margie, what's the name of your group? And I said, well, my husband calls us the hard and soft G-strings because we're Margie and Margie. And they actually printed this. They printed it. It was in the paper. It was on a poster. Margie Schlossman and Margie Bailey, hard and soft G-strings. Okay. It wasn't very good for either one of our reputations, that's for sure. So anyway, the other thing that makes this all possible is that little collective group that you see there. And that was at the Chamber Award last year. And I guess the message that goes along with this is you can see that my cute little granddaughter in pink there is holding this crystal award. And I was afraid she'd drop it, really, which could have been really embarrassing and probably hurt Elsa, her sister, right there. But it's that metaphor again for passing the baton. And so why do you do this? Why do you wake up in the middle of the night wondering if the holes in the Fargo Theater are going to be filled and all those kinds of things, and if the concession workers are going to show up, all those kinds of things, if the Lego is going to show up? You do it because you want to leave that as a message and a guiding principle and something for your grandchildren and their children to hang on to. So that's that passing the baton kind of thing. So you have to pick it up, you have to take a chance, and then you have to pass it on. And sometimes that's the very hardest thing to do. And it was certainly hard for me to do that at the Fargo Theater. Now I have Emily, who's doing just a terrific job, and the lights are still on, and that's really the important part. So there they are. They're my foundation. They've put up with me for a long time. So what's next? parking ramp downtown Fargo, you know, seriously, really. Parking matters, parking does matter, and I'm fully aware of that, and I'm wearing this hat, so there. And then also, it's the season, so, you know, if you want to be a little flaky, whoops, there you are. This is, I've always thought this was one of my better looks, so. All right, so that's it. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. I'm so grateful that you were willing to sit here and listen to me today. And just remember, wear funny hats, you know, especially if you're really feeling, if it's a down day, just put on a funny hat or a flake or something like that. It works every single solitary time. Thank you so much for having me today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Margie. We have a few minutes for questions.
You didn't tell me about this part.
All right, so when things got difficult for you as a leader, what were some of the things that enabled you to successfully navigate through those challenges?
Willingness to risk, knowing, rising above things, having faith that I was doing the right thing. I would say specifically in the Fargo Theater, I would always try to think about whether or not the decision was in the best long-term interest of the Fargo Theater. And I think that would translate into the best long-term interests of Gethsemane Cathedral. I see my zoo friends over here, the best long-term interests of the zoo. I've gotten involved in that recently as well. So you have to have something out there that's kind of the guiding thing, because there's a lot of intervening stuff in there. And so if you can work it through and decide that yes, long-term, this is going to be the best decision. That's if you could hang on to that and not falter. Not easy. Yeah.
One or two more questions?
Hi, Sharon.
I have two questions. First of all, Margie and I used to talk when we were at the Sundance Film Festival in Park City a few years ago. We were going to protest texting and emailing and all of that stuff.
Yes.
Well,
Oh,
ta-da. Yeah, we thought it was just not human. So
really,
anyway.
too many movies. Don't go to Sundance. Go to the Fargo Film Festival.
Exactly.
Too many movie stars at Sundance. You know, they've gotten way off track. They're not celebrating film. They're celebrating stars. Good grief. Oh, it's
Anyway.
really annoying.
I have two questions. Number one, Margie, is, you know, so did your children think you were sort of not home, cooking dinner, out to lunch, somewhere along the line with all of your volunteering and your passions? That's question number one. And question number two is, I think behind every fabulous woman is a wonderful, supportive husband. I think I'd like to have Dick stand up.
He's there. I'll tell you one quick story about our kids. This was the day that I forgot to pick them up at camp. This was not like a day camp. This was like a sleepaway camp, Camp Foley for boys. And I was sitting there. I was home from work. At 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I got a call. Mrs. Bailey, when are you picking up the boys? I said, well, tomorrow morning I'm going to be there at 9 o'clock. It was that day. It was, you know, I dropped them off on a Tuesday. I figured I'd pick them up 2 weeks later on a Tuesday. This was a Monday. But this is something important for you to know. If you go to summer camp, to Camp Foley, you drop them off on a Tuesday, you pick them up 2 weeks later, but on the Monday. Oh, God. So, yeah, I was a little bit frightening to them sometimes, yeah. When I did get there to pick them up, they were so forlorn. I mean, these kids were like 10 and 12 or something. They're sitting there, last campers there, of course. Fortunately, it was summertime, so it was still light, but barely. And of course, then the staff was really angry at me because they'd had to stay around with these campers that they couldn't get rid of. So, yeah, I made a few major mistakes. That was a big one.
All right, any last questions?
Did you ever feel that you had a constant group that were trying to stop you?
Oh, constant group trying to stop me. Other than Barry Fife. There were always, that's inevitable. And again, that's where that guiding principle thing comes in. And so you have to, sometimes that just becomes kind of riffraff, kind of just sort of noise. If you know yourself that you're doing the right thing, and it's not about you, it's about this project that you believe so strongly in, and that you believe it is in the long-term best interest of the Fargo-Moorhead area, then you soldier it through. You really do. And if you can keep your eye on that ball out there, that's what you do. But yeah, there are some, bankers, they're tough, really. There are other groups of people out there collectively that are kind of annoying too. Academics, oh boy. I'm trying to get this Culinary Institute together and, integrate curriculum. Oh my God, whoa. There's a lot of ownership in these curriculums, let me tell you, so. Okay.
On that note, I'd like to hear about your pet projects. You've mentioned the zoo.
Yes.
So what are you working on right now?
Well, as Andrea knows, I'm trying to get a Culinary Institute, hopefully in downtown Fargo. There's a wonderful model in Winnipeg called the Patterson Global Food Institute that is in a restored bank building. It's 11 stories high, and on the main floor is a beautiful, totally student-run restaurant, and then they have laboratories on the second and third and fourth and fifth floors, and then they have student housing beyond that. I think we're at a tipping point in terms of our culinary capacity, shall we say, certainly in the downtown area and throughout the community. This would be a part of workforce development. Where's John Mahachek and Jim? Workforce development, economic development, yep, absolutely. But the challenge is, I think it's really important to give students at the greatest number of tools possible. So I'm a big believer in having management, academic credential around management, financial management, people management, all those kinds of things. So it's going to be a matter of integrating curriculum, at least from the State School of Science, with NDSU. So it's going to be challenging. It really is. We just had a meeting yesterday, and it's getting the curriculums integrated, quite frankly, and figuring out how that path is going to work and who is responsible for what, who oversees what. And it will be challenging, but it will happen. Just think about, a cold winter night in downtown Fargo and just walking past a glass, looking into a restaurant and seeing all students serving and chefing and doing the mixology thing, although I suppose if they're not 21, they shouldn't do the mixology thing. But doing that in in the Exchange District in Winnipeg is absolutely sensational, and it is a showstopper. It is a real showstopper, and food is really big right now, in case you didn't know that. It's very, very big. So hopefully we'll keep on track for this. Yeah, this is one of those really slow and steady things. And this is not losing, I don't want the people that I've already engaged in this to lose their momentum, because curriculum building, as many of you know, is really difficult, and curriculum integration is really difficult, and deciding who owns what becomes really difficult. But we can do this, and our students want this. Young people really do. This would be a wonderful, creative new major for us. So I'm going to keep on that. Other than parking? No. Yeah, and early childhood development, that's still a big passion for me as well. So yeah, I'm not resting. That was another thing that Mother always said, don't rest on your laurels. So yeah, you got to keep moving. It's cold.
Shake it off, let it go, get a team, collaborate, don't rest on your laurels. Connect your fundraising to your mission, embrace the risk, embrace the learning curve, passion, partnerships, pray, play, and pass it on. Thank you so much, Margie, for your wonderful talk with us this afternoon.
Thank you.